In the last days of September 2024, procurement teams at chip companies in Taiwan, South Korea, and Arizona all pulled up the same satellite image. Not of a fab, not of a port, not of a rival, of a mountain town in western North Carolina with a population of 2,194. The town was underwater, and with it, the source of nearly every vessel the world uses to melt silicon. No quartz from this town, no crucibles. No crucibles, no wafers, no wafers, no chips. This is the story of how the entire digital economy came to rest on one flooded main street in the Appalachian Mountains, and how close it came, for a few days in the autumn of 2024, to breaking. To understand why that satellite image terrified executives 9,000 miles away, you need to know what comes out of the ground there. It looks like gravel, dull, white, entirely unremarkable gravel. The best grades of itself are roughly $10,000 a ton, and for the better part of a century, the people of Spruce Pine, North Carolina, threw it away. Every advanced chip on Earth begins its life as a cylinder of impossibly pure silicon, grown from a bath of molten metal at over 1,400 degrees Celsius. The technique is called the Czochralski process, named after a Polish chemist who discovered it in 1916, by accident, when he dipped his pen into a pot of molten tin instead of his inkwell. Here is the problem the entire industry hangs on. You need something to hold that molten silicon, a container, a crucible, and at 1,400 degrees, almost any container on Earth will dissolve into the melt and poison it. The only material that works is fused quartz, and not ordinary quartz. Quartz refined to 99.9992% purity, a few stray atoms per million, anything less, and the contamination ends up inside the silicon, and the chips built on it fail. That is what comes out of Spruce Pine. The two mines in that valley supply more than 80% of the world's commercial high-purity quartz. Virtually every crucible in every silicon plant on the planet is lined with material from this one town, which raises an obvious question. Quartz is the single most abundant mineral on the surface of the Earth. Beach sand is mostly quartz, so why can only one valley in the Appalachians produce the stuff that matters? The answer was written 380 million years ago, when two continents collided. Deep beneath what is now North Carolina, the collision drove veins of granitic magma into the surrounding rock, and then trapped them there, kilometers down, where they cooled with extraordinary slowness. Over tens of thousands of years, slow cooling grows large crystals, and this particular magma was unusually dry. Very little water, which is how most impurities sneak into quartz as it forms. The result was a deposit geologists call the Spruce Pine pegmatite, feldspar, mica, and quartz of a cleanliness that has never been found anywhere else at industrial scale. Not in Brazil, not in Norway, not in Russia. Those deposits exist, and they are smaller, dirtier, or both. You can synthesize ultra-pure quartz in a lab. It costs multiples of the mine price, and nobody has ever scaled it. A geological accident that happened at scale exactly once in the recorded history of the planet. On September 24, 2024, a tropical storm named Helene crossed into the Gulf of Mexico and began to strengthen. The forecast track pointed at Florida. Nobody in the semiconductor industry was watching a hurricane. Hurricanes do not reach mountain towns 500 miles from the sea. The town the storm was heading for had spent a century learning what it was sitting on, the hard way. Mining in Spruce Pine goes back to the late 1800s, and it was never about quartz. First it was mica, the shimmering sheet mineral that once served as window glass for stoves. Then feldspar, dug out by the trainload from the early 1900s, ground up for ceramics, for false teeth, for kitchen cleanser. The quartz was in the way. Miners hand-crushed the rock, kept the mica in the feldspar, and dumped the quartz on spoil heaps. For decades, the purest industrial mineral on Earth sat in piles by the road, and children played on it. The first people to look twice were glassmakers. In the 1930s, engineers from Corning began hauling spruce pine quartz north for premium glass. But the transformation came with the electronics age, when the silicon industry discovered that its crucibles survived longest and its ingots came out cleanest, when the quartz came from one specific district in North Carolina. By the 2010s, the arrangement had settled into its final, strange shape. Two companies, Sibelco, a Belgian industrial minerals group, the Quartz Corp, a Norwegian-French joint venture, two processing plants, one narrow river valley, a single rail line to carry the product out. Roughly 20,000 tons a year of material sold under quiet, decades-long contracts. And around it all, a culture of secrecy that borders on the theatrical. The plants are unmarked. Employees sign agreements and do not talk. The exact chemistry used to purify the quartz is one of the most closely guarded trade secrets in the industrial world. Journalists who have gone to Spruce Pine to ask about it have been politely, firmly turned away. Think about what that means. The foundation of a $600 billion semiconductor industry, beneath the fabs, beneath the lithography machines, beneath even the neon, is a gravel operation in a town of 2,000 people, protected by two fences and a non-disclosure agreement. No strategic stockpile, no government oversight, no plan B. In File 3 of this series, the choke point nobody audited was a pair of steelworks in Ukraine. This one, nobody even needed a war to expose, just rain. On the evening of September 26th, Helene made landfall in the Florida Panhandle as a Category 4 hurricane, with winds of 225 kilometers per hour. Then it did the thing forecasters fear most in the southern Appalachians. It kept going, inland, northward, straight into the mountains, which force wet air upward and wring it out like a sponge. A stalled weather front had already soaked western North Carolina for 2 days before the hurricane arrived. The ground was full. The rivers were high. Then Helene dropped its payload on top. Over 3 days, the gauges around Spruce Pine recorded 24.12 inches of rain. 600 millimeters, 2 months of Appalachian weather, delivered in one storm. The North Toe River, the quiet stream that runs directly between the town and its mines, rose between 20 and 30 feet. By the morning of September 27th, downtown Spruce Pine was under 8 feet of water. The power was out across Mitchell County. Roads into the valley had collapsed, and the CSX rail line along the river, the single track that carries the world's crucible quartz to its customers, had been torn away in miles-long sections, rails left twisted in the riverbed. Sibelco, shut down. The Quartz Corp, shut down. For the first time in living memory, the world's supply of semiconductor-grade quartz was zero. The following Monday, the analyst notes started landing on trading desks. Most carried the same two-part message. Part 1, the sky is not falling yet. Crucible manufacturers held weeks to months of quartz inventory, and fabs held stocks of finished crucibles. Part 2, buried lower down. If the outage stretched from weeks into a quarter, there was no alternative source on Earth. The world's silicon growers would simply quietly begin to run out of containers. In 2022, the neon shock had at least offered substitutes. Other air separation plants, other countries, higher prices. Spruce Pine offered no such ladder. It was the whole market, or it was nothing. What saved the industry was speed and luck. The mines and plants sit slightly above the river, and they took far less damage than the town below them. On October 10, 2024, 2 weeks after the storm, Sibelco announced that production and customer shipments at Spruce Pine had restarted. The Quartz Corp followed in the weeks after. With the railway gone, the quartz left by truck, convoy after convoy, down mountain roads that had themselves only just reopened. The chip shortage that could have defined 2025 never happened. Wafer production never blinked. The AI build-out never noticed. The whole event compressed into a 2-week hole in one supply chain that almost nobody knew existed. The town was not so lucky. Months after the mines were shipping again, Main Street was still gutted. Historic buildings condemned, businesses closed, families in temporary housing. The quartz recovered faster than the people who dig it. Remember that satellite image from the cold open? The one open on screens in Taipei and Seoul and Phoenix. What those executives were looking at was the answer to a question none of them had thought to ask. Where does the container come from? Every industry audits its suppliers. Almost no industry audits its suppliers. In February 2022, the blind spot was purified neon from 2 Ukrainian steelworks. In September 2024, it was crucible quartz from 1 Appalachian Valley. Same pattern every time, a byproduct, an afterthought, a line item, until the morning it is the only thing anyone can talk about. Since Helene, high-purity quartz has quietly joined the list that governments keep of critical materials. Crucible makers carry fatter inventories. There is fresh money in synthetic quartz research, and yet, as of this year, the numbers have barely moved. More than 8 of every 10 tons still come from the same valley, the same 2 companies, the same single road along the same small river. The choke points of the modern world are not fortresses. They are towns you have never heard of, digging rocks that look like nothing, sold by companies that do not advertise, moving on infrastructure nobody photographs. The system works until the water rises, and somewhere on a spoil heap in the Appalachians, there is a pile of dull white gravel worth more, ounce for ounce of consequence, than anything else on this planet. It is holding up your phone, your car, and the data center training the next model. And it is still just sitting there, in the rain. The last time the chip industry came this close to stopping, it was a gas nobody had heard of, from a war nobody predicted. That story, the neon story, is on screen now. If these are the stories you came here for, subscribe. More files are on the way.